that is probably the worst thing you can do, because for one, you're already playing catch up, and two, people can usually smell the desperation.
Hey, Skid Steer Nation. Welcome back for another episode of the Skid Steer Nation podcast. As always, I am your host, Ryan Deemer. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We've got a special guest, Luke Eggebraaten. Let's see. He's a mastermind in the marketing world, specifically tailored to the excavation industry, and he helps a lot of excavation companies scale and scale quickly. He's also the host of the Dirtbags Podcast, so I'm sure many of you listeners out there have already heard that show. If not, you can find the link in the show descriptions and check him out, him and his other guest, Luke. And we're just really excited. This is the first time that I've actually had a podcast host as a guest, so it's going to be really exciting. Luke, welcome to the show, man.
Ryan, thank you so much. Absolutely killed the intro, and I couldn't be more honored to be on the show. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. I actually butchered the intro because I don't like reading things line for line. I feel like it seems forced. So I kept reading it and I'm like, I'm skipping over that. I'm just going to say what I feel.
Yeah, no, I love it. And yeah, dude, it's fun too. Like you mentioned, a podcast host being a guest. Like I love being a guest on a show because it's, you just get to see how other people like run their shows. But at the end of the day, you're just talking with somebody else. You're just talking about business. You're talking about what you enjoy. So this is just another conversation.
Absolutely, man. So I've got one question that I really am fixated on starting the show with. You go from working in marketing in, I believe, the dental aspect.
Yeah.
And now you're like crushing it in excavation. Like it's not even close to where do you go from dental niche to heavy iron?
Yeah, man. So really where it started, that was my first full-time job outside of college. And I was actually a marketing director for an orthodontic practice. And the marketing agency I got to oversee, that's what they did is digital marketing for orthodontic practices. And what I noticed as I was like, man, these guys are awesome. They're crushing it for us. They're making me look good as the director or whatever. And we're paying them tons of money, but we're like almost happy to pay them because they added so much value. And I was like, this is so cool. Like I gotta start one of these. And I loved the aspect of niching down and all of that. And so started Phaser Marketing it was October 24th, 2019. And my goal is just start it on the side. And one day, hopefully, maybe we'll get to go full time in this thing. And, but I knew that to do that, I wasn't going to pay myself a penny until I was ready to go full time and just build this brand. And so 2 years flew by, and then 2021 came around, and my wife got a full-time job, which moved us down to Arizona. And at that time, we're like, I think it's time to just take that next step, right? And
it's funny how the world tells you it's time, isn't it?
Yeah, man. And it's such a blessing. We had a couple clients, and one of my first clients, as you mentioned, is Luke Payne. He's from, he owns Western Excavation and started with Black Iron Dirt up in Fargo, North Dakota. Really good friend of mine. We're now co-hosts on the Dirtbags Podcast, but he was one of my first clients. And that's what really catapulted me into this industry of demolition and excavation. And yeah, it made so much sense because all of my coaches and mastermind groups and everyone was telling me, Luke, if you want to make an impact on an industry, make an impact with businesses and people and your team, you have to niche down. Like it's going to make everything easier. And to me, it was a no-brainer. Like we worked with a couple of real estate agencies, garage door companies, random companies here and there, but we had a few excavation companies. And I was like, no doubt, this is what we're going to invest all of our time and our resources into. And fast forward a few years now, and that's where we're at today is sitting here, we only work with excavation companies, and it's been amazing.
Yeah. So you want to hear a funny story? When I was the director of operations for Do More Equipment, my head of marketing and I decided we were going to start like a little side agency. We named it Riptide Marketing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were doing the same thing, right? Like we had a gym, we had an attorney and a few other people. And I got to the point that I hated the clients, because you can't get good at the gym industry and then at the attorney, helping an attorney, because we were just all over the place.
Right.
So it was like we try, and then we're both working full time. But when I started Skid Steer Nation, it was like I love marketing. These manufacturers, a lot of these people back then didn't have a big sales and marketing team. I was like, so what if I take my marketing skills and instead of having clients, become my own client and start Skid Steer Nation? So it was a mix of loving the marketing, and then like if I do it myself, then I don't have any clients to complain, or
Right.
kind of selfishly in that regard. But yeah, it's so funny. It's funny, like if you just find a love like marketing and then you want to start as a side hustle, next thing you know, if you give it enough time and nourishment, it blossoms.
Yeah. And at the end of the day too, I don't even think it was as much marketing, but I just loved business. I was always flipping things like on Craigslist always. And so even in college, when I was high school, middle school, I'd buy a go-kart. I'd throw $1 coat of black paint on it and I'd resell it and I'd just remarket it. And then in college, I was buying a lot of pit bikes, dirt bikes, dune buggies just for beer money and stuff. And then, but just the aspect of, spending less than you make and understanding that there's value in remarketing and also just marketing. And that was more of where I wanted to go, is just like start a brand and a business that I'm proud of, that isn't scammy or sleazy and that can make an impact on a lot of people. But just doing it in like a very ethical, fun way.
Yep. I love that, man. It's so hard to find good companies to partner with because you don't know if you've never worked with them or you don't have a good reference from somebody that has. Like, it's so easy to talk the talk.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, actually. So especially this year, we've almost done the opposite of we try and lower the bar for people, especially when we're in like a sales call. And because we don't do any magic tricks, we just don't. We build good marketing habits for a very specific industry, and that's the excavation space. So there isn't any, like, we can't save every single business. We don't do any crazy magic trick things, but we also know when somebody's a good fit for us. And so just having those conversations, making sure we lower the expectations a bit so they're on earth here. And then we can show them what we do, who we work with, and why we do the things. And a lot of it we changed our vocabulary from a package. We don't do any packages anymore. We only do programs. And so
I love that.
We have a phase 1 program, phase 2, and phase 3. Like, that's it. And there's no a la carte options. There's no projects here and there. It's just, we have everything tailored. And the reason we say the word program is because we do what we need to do, but also there's a piece of it that our clients need to do to make this program work. And so it's pretty easy to find the leak and figure out who's kind of dropping the ball and making sure we get each other back on track.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we used to get the phone calls all the time, like, man, these leads you got me, they're terrible. And then I'm like, well, I just listened to your secretary talking to the leads, and I don't think it's the leads that are terrible.
Right. Yeah. You can always find the leak somewhere. And a lot of times it's in your own agency. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think, we're built on transparency. And so everything is available for anyone to see. And we were talking about this before the call too, but whether it's our numbers, who we work with, what we do for certain clients, like all of that is out there because there's nothing to hide. There's no secrets. It's just, how we want to operate our business.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, we're talking about marketing agency and like some different marketing things with this, but like at the end of the day, it's the values and principles that your business is built on that help guide your decisions for you to build a strong, stable, repeatable income for you. And it's a lot of the same techniques that excavation company owners should be doing.
Absolutely. And we see it all the time, with the companies we work with. And, there's a lot of that sharing of knowledge and strategies of things that are working because, with the workforce issue too, like how do you keep guys or how do you keep employees working for you? And how do you scale a business to one day, take a vacation so you don't have to, or if you get sick, how can you step away for a little bit and the business still operates with these systems? And so a lot of this is just consulting and talking business with our clients of seeing, what's working for them because we're figuring it out as well on our side. And so a lot of that shared knowledge, even with other people in the industry, other construction companies, other agencies, getting involved with associations has really helped us because we get to see all types of companies, what's working, what's not, and really just how to build a more sustainable business that, can be good for everyone, the employees, their clients, the owners, the vendors, like everyone involved.
Yeah. I saw that you just posted on Facebook. I'm not sure it was today or yesterday, but I mean, there's a lot of good nuggets for any business owner in this, but you were specifically talking about how you assessed your business, found a piece that was broken, which was your onboarding process.
Yeah.
Took notes on why it wasn't working or what wasn't being done, where the leaks were at. And then you just worked solely on the onboarding process until you had it where you wanted it, where it was duplicatable and where all the other team members could do the same way. And I just remember reading that going, wow, I love that. You know, you have to have that laser focus approach, one problem at a time. But there's so many things like in excavation companies, if these guys would just take a step back and go, let's fix one small thing at a time and stop trying to ram it all at once.
Yeah. It's actually the post I put out today. And so
Is
I love
it today?
that.
I remember
that you saw that. Yeah. And especially with an excavation company, like, and just an entrepreneur in general, like there's so many things that are going through your head and so many things that you need to fix. Everything's breaking. There's not enough money coming in. There's people are leaving, but just take one process. Like the essence of it is just, if you just simplify it down, because you can't do all these processes at once. You can't fix them all. And so it's like, okay, and for me, it was our onboarding. I knew our onboarding had to improve drastically because I had mentioned in the post, I was like writing it on like a scratch pad. And then like I would ask different questions each time and it's kind of fluffy and unorganized. And I was like, let's just dial this in. Let's tear it apart. Let's figure out from our clients what needs to be done. Where's the bottleneck? Like where are things not getting done? And how can we streamline this process? And so, we took it was the whole like 6 months, but we really went hard at it for the last 3 months and just tore it apart and said, this is how we're going to do it beginning to end. And we've been seeing the results of it just with our construction clients, like going through it, and it's just running a lot more smoothly. And so funny enough, now that we've patched that up and that's running, we're currently in our offboarding process. And so no matter what people tell you, you will always lose clients. You'll always lose customers for one reason or another. That it should matter why you lose them, because that's a big piece of, what you may be doing wrong. But in any business, you're going to lose people. Maybe they sold their business. Maybe somebody's cheaper, whatever.
Luke, let's be honest. You always lose a customer because they're an idiot. They don't know what they're doing, right?
Absolutely not.
It's never your fault. Never my fault.
Right. Yeah. That's a great lesson. And just like realizing like, okay, because, we did offboard a few clients this year and it was kind of like guesswork. It's like, okay, what is the operating procedure of how we offboard cleanly and make it a good experience still? And so now we're tearing that apart and it's really coming together nice of like, it doesn't have to be a bad experience when you offboard a client. Like you want to make sure that the transition is actually a good one so that if somebody asks them, hey, I saw you worked with Phaser Marketing, how were they? They're like, didn't accomplish our goals, but great people, they did everything they could. And honestly, like the processes went well, it just didn't work out for us. And so not burning those bridges too is huge. But yeah, just back to taking one simple process in your business and fixing it. It might take a day, might take a couple hours, might take a few weeks. But focusing on that one will really help start putting together this business. One other quick example is how you bill people. And so sometimes it's on the owner to send an invoice, to receive a check, to make a call, to follow up with past due invoices. Whose job is it? It doesn't matter whose job it is, but you need to assess that whole situation and say, is this the best way we should be running it? Or should somebody else be doing it? Should this part be automated? Like, how can we make this as clean as possible?
Yeah. And I'm glad you said automated, because like there's 3 words that whenever I look at a process or something that we need to do in the business, I look at it from myself perspective of 3 words. 1, can I automate it? Like, how do we make it so nobody forgets to do it? It automatically runs. Yeah. If I can't automate it, can I delegate it?
Yeah.
Like, so is there somebody else in my team that can learn this skill, that can duplicate it time and time again? And then sometimes I look at it and say, well, can I eliminate it? Like, is it actually a process I need to be doing, or am I creating work to stay busy with no purpose or end? And I'll tell you what, about 80 to 90% of the time, if you can't eliminate it, you can automate it or delegate it. And then you can take 100% of the work, and now you only got to do 10% yourself.
Yeah. And I think a great way to look at that as well is you list everything out that you do in your business and how much time that takes. And then you think about how much does that cost per hour to replace. And then you look at your time and what your value is if you're out running your business or making these calls or attending these networking events. What is your hourly rate? And so if you're still doing a task that really should be about $10 an hour that you can automate or delegate, you need to get that out so that you're doing the bigger stuff that you should be doing.
And the kicker is, I think a lot of business owners, one, they're afraid to let go of some of that because it's their baby. But two, when you start letting go of those small tasks like that, you wouldn't believe the amount of mental capacity that opens up for you to focus on big problems or to be creative, looking for new things to do, because you're not dreading sending out 50 invoices and calling 7 customers that haven't paid you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it just starts with the one small thing, do one thing at a time. And because it's going to be daunting when you look at everything, because as an entrepreneur, you wear every single hat, but you just need to start taking one hat off at a time.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And I'm losing my words here because I'm so in agreement with you, but yeah, one at a time. It's so easy to try to do 5 things at once.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of 5 things at once, here you are breaking processes, making things better at Phaser. And then in the middle of trying to scale this business, you just think it's a great idea to get your buddy Luke and start ripping up a podcast, man.
Dude, absolutely. That I know you can attest to this. Podcasting has been my favorite thing we've ever done. I mean, it's the amount Luke and I have learned on the podcast, the amount of fun we've had, just everything, man. It's so cool. If you want to start one, it's as easy as just opening up your laptop and starting. That's what I always say to people, just get started. Luke and I started the Dirtbags, February 2022. We had Aaron Witt as our first guest. The episode, I'm sure, is cringy and rough to listen back to, but it doesn't matter because we're just going to keep getting better. But yeah, I love what you're doing with Skid Steer Nation. And I was pumped to jump on here and talk to you about it because I know how much you enjoy podcasting, and just the amount of information and the guests and the people you get to talk to and the connections you get to make is incredible.
It is. And it's funny. I'm in agreement with you. People ask me oh, you have a podcast. I'm like, yeah, what's that like? And I go, you know how there's work that you do that drains your energy and you're exhausted after you do it? They're like, yeah. I'm like, this is the exact opposite. I get done doing a podcast interview, my energy level's high. I feel like my cup's been filled. I feel like it's actually rejuvenating me versus me giving energy to it.
Yeah. And this actually ties in very well with our last discussion. But one thing that typically burns you out as a podcaster is, for one, you're doing it just to make money. You think it's going to be this big success that's going to retire you. I would table that and not do it for that reason, because it takes a long time. But the second thing is too, don't try and do everything. Just like we were talking about, Luke and I started the Dirtbags. We haven't, and this is just us personally, but we haven't edited a single episode ever. So right away we brought in, just off of Upwork.com. His name's Brandon. He's worked with me for a long time. He's a video editor. Pay him $20 an hour. He loves this stuff. He enjoys video editing. He enjoys producing podcasts. And it allowed Luke and I to record, be our true selves, fill everything up. And then when we hit stop, we send it to him and we go do whatever else we need to do. We're not stuck in the trenches of doing the stuff we don't like that's starting to drain us, of video editing and figuring out how to upload all this stuff and do the best strategy. It's find out somebody that likes to do that stuff for fun and is very, very good at it, and bring them in. It's a lot easier than most people think.
Yeah. So I was blessed with a team that I've built for Skid Steer Nation. So we have our own creative director. So my process is so similar to yours, right? So my assistant, Kim, is doing all the outreach through Facebook or Instagram, looking for business owners that have something intriguing on their story or their timeline, asking them if they want to be a guest, getting them to fill out our form submission so that we can have some talking points, and then scheduling the podcast. So this morning I woke up and I'm like, oh, I get to meet Shane at 11 o'clock. And I had to pull up Facebook and learn about Shane, because I've had nothing to do with him being a guest on the show. We recorded the 1 hour episode. I uploaded all the video into our Google Drive folder for production with his name and folder. I won't even know when it's released in 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I love that. And it's just, and it takes time to get there, of course, but Luke and I, when we started, we both had MacBook Air laptops. And then as we've launched a few episodes, we're like, all right, let's get a Blue Yeti microphone that plugs into our laptop. $100 on Amazon, done. Yeah. And it's just, it's not as expensive as people think. And people always talk about, one day I'll do that. One tip I would give for that is to tell people about your podcast and tell them I'm going to put out one episode a month. It comes out on the last Friday of every month. That way you're like committed and stuck to it. You have a deadline. And so I think what kills all podcasts is the consistency. If you stop for 3 months, 4 months, you lose it all. And then you try and get back up and going, get the momentum. You just start to lose it. So just the consistency, it'll really help you with deadlines and bringing in guests and topics. But also for your listeners too, they want something that's a bit more consistent.
Yeah. And I don't want to change topics, but I feel like I'm compelled to right now. You keep talking about consistency. That's one of the things that I really drive home to like the owners of businesses that we work with.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, listen, you guys market the bejesus out of things when you're slow. Like you'll spend extra money on ads and you'll do all this. And then you fill the calendar for 3 weeks. And then it's crickets on marketing and lead generation.
Yeah.
So all you do is keep creating these peaks and valleys of busy work, no work, busy work, no work, because you turn the spigot off for leads. And it's like, if you find a consistent manner that can work for you, don't turn it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got to keep it going in any business, especially, if you wait till you have no leads and to start marketing, that is probably the worst thing you can do because, for one, you're already playing catch up, and two, people can usually smell the desperation.
I'm just going to say the same thing.
They notice it. And so sometimes a lot of customers, especially in construction or even like heavy landscaping, things like that, they want to work with the company that's booked out because they're booked out for a reason. And it's like, okay, well, when can you fit me in on your spring schedule? And then you get that set up and, you get your deposit in and everything. So it just, it's keeping the consistency. I'm big on organic marketing because that is something we're building a foundation on and we're building up from there. And it's not so much like turn the ads on, turn them off, turn them on, turn them off. It's so, like,
So speaking of that, like for a local excavation company in Pickatown, USA.
Yep.
For organic growth, what do you think the 2 or 3 most important things are for them that either they can do it themselves or hire it out?
I love that question. So there's a lot of things you can do yourself and they're easy and they're free. SEO, search engine optimization, it's actually all completely free. When you hire an agency like mine or anyone else, you're just paying them because the people know how to do it a bit better. So what you can do for free, number one, always most important, your Google business profile. It is completely free. If you don't have yours, just type in Google business profile. You can get yours set up. It'll have you verify your location. Let's say you're based out of Fargo, North Dakota, and you have a shop. It'll have you verify your shop. Boom, you're now in Google's entire ecosystem, Google Maps, Google Search, everything. And the cool thing about it, and most people overlook this, it almost acts as your own website. So even if you don't have a website, I always tell people start with that because you can have your pictures on there. You can have photos of your work, your equipment, your team. You can have a call button, directions. You can also have any offers when you're open in your office. And what I think is very fascinating that is underutilized, they almost have a type of social media with it. It's like Google's form of social media. And that would just be posting updates on your Google business profile. So whenever I post something for Phaser, which is our business, I post it on our Facebook company page, our Instagram company page, LinkedIn company page, and the fourth is that Google business profile. And the reason I do those 4, and they're different for most markets, but Facebook, I would say, is more of your residential clients, maybe family, friends, things like that. They might find you. Instagram, especially for contractors, those are your other contractors. That's where you can kind of network with other construction companies across the nation, across the world. LinkedIn is huge for presidents, CEOs, big GCs, estimators, PMs, they're all on LinkedIn, and they're a lot more serious because they're scrolling LinkedIn instead of Facebook. And then the fourth, Google Business Profile, Google's actually picking up on your keywords that you're posting. So if you're talking about your land management job or the septic system you just put in, they can actually take those keywords, and if somebody's searching for that, and match it up with like septic system in Fargo, North Dakota, these guys might have your answer. So that's kind of how and why I like to do all four, and making sure we're kind of spread across those platforms. But definitely, if you haven't done anything with the Google Business Profile, jump on there. You can do it for free, and it's very easy to build a good habit there.
Yeah. And I 100% agree with you. And the only touch point I would add into that is, so many times I see a Google Business Profile where it's like, we do A, B, C, D, E. And like, that's the whole description of their business, right? Like This thing's going to be working 24 hours a day, 365. Right. Either take the time and fill out the answers really, really well, because it's a one-time job, right? I love doing tasks that I only have to do once and can keep working for me. It's worth the investment in time. Or B, hire somebody else to do it. But like, don't do a simple, I work out of my basement look to your Google Business Profile.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, to take it a step further, like you were just talking about, so definitely Google Business Profile. Second, I would say the website. And that can be, if you're going to build it yourself, I recommend Squarespace. Simple, easy platform, still pretty customizable. If you're going to go with an agency, our agency builds them all on WordPress. So what you can expect usually from prices, like on our side, is, our phase one program, for example, is, $3,000 startup fee, $1,500 per month, which covers the website and all the SEO. If you're looking at your numbers and you're like, yeah, I mean, that seems really high, there's options like under us too. And so you can work with bigger agencies like Town Square, Haibu. They're not specialized in construction, and you're going to get more generalist website, but their SEO capabilities are still there. And then another option, which I like this option as well, is finding a freelancer. So that could be somebody from Upwork.com is a great one. You could jump on LinkedIn and see if there's anyone on there, or just somebody locally. I think what you get with a freelancer, if your budget is a little bit smaller, is that you have a bit more customization with that person. They can do a bit more research into you, into your company, little bit more, give and take, push and pull, that kind of stuff, which is good. So I would look at all four of those options of just, if you're not going to do anything, do your Google Business Profile. If you want to go a step up, go with, a big agency like Haibu or Town Square. One step up further, freelancer that's dedicated to you. And then another step up would be like an agency that's focused in construction.
Yeah, especially like Phaser. Got it.
Yeah,
I think that's great. I mean, I think Google Business Profile is like a cheat code for these small businesses, because most guys don't have it or have a really poor one.
Yeah.
And like, we're able to take guys, and like, we used to do marketing services a couple of years ago before we switched to coaching and consulting. We get guys that were on like page 7 and have them on page 1 in 7 days.
Right. Yeah. And the reviews too. I mean, that's the reviews become so much of it. And so and I love the way Google does it, because they're not teaching you to do any crazy magic tricks. It's just do add value to your customers, add value to your clients, answer frequently asked questions, all that kind of stuff. So in a sense, that's what a lot of these marketing people or companies are working to do, is just help put that information out there. But a lot of it you can do yourself.
Yeah. And then Google got rid of the frequently asked questions section, I noticed. So now there's a place for customers to ask questions. So I actually go in there for clients that we do work with, and I treat that like the FAQ. And I'll write the question, and then I'll also write the answer. Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, that's definitely underutilized for many reasons. Like, most people don't know it's there, but definitely a tool you can jump in and use.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you're looking at trying to get a better presence online, start with Google Business Profile or call Luke, A or B.
Yeah. And honestly, if you do call me, like, there's a good chance I'll send you somewhere else too, because I want to make sure that, you're taken care of. And a lot of times that's, not with us, which is totally fine.
Yeah. And I love that too, because like you're really big into providing value at no cost. So from the posts that you put out there, the conversations you'll have with people that call or email you, now you're big into speaking engagements. Like you're getting ready to do like the septic, I don't remember the exact name of it, up in the state of Michigan. You got some other ones lined up. You did Con Expo last year, I think, right?
Yep.
So like, I love that you're giving as much as you're giving.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it's just like, I always want to be, a resource first and a marketing agency second, because I know I just want to be that guy where no matter who it is, they can reach out to me if they have a certain question about marketing or business, and then they'll know that I might have somebody I can like point them to in the right direction, and just somebody that's trustworthy that they can go to. So, the speaking engagements have been super fun because it's just, I get to go up there and just talk about an educational topic of, typically it's digital marketing or growing your business or hiring for your business. And of course it's usually niched down within construction. So it's a great way to, add value to them, to meet new people. But it also, you think of how many keynote presentations you sit through in a year in your career. And I'm really trying to change it up to like making it different, making it really fun, and not trying to give somebody too much. Like I just want them to get one takeaway from each of my sessions. And if they can remember one takeaway, then I've succeeded there. So always trying to work on like changing that up and making sure it's always new and fresh. But Con Expo show, that was my first time there. That was incredible. I can't believe like how many people were out there, but I think they amassed like 120,000 people or something. It was
nuts.
Crazy.
Yeah. You physically can't see all the booths.
No, not even half of them.
Yeah. I mean, you might be able to see all the booths outside, but you cannot see them all inside and outside.
Yeah. I mean, they run such a clean ship too, but it's only every 3 years. So if you have never been, I think 2026 in March, I believe is their next one. Definitely go out. It's people from all over the world. Like just the networking is incredible because you get to meet anyone and everyone you want there. It's just a great place to have as a common meeting ground, whether you're trying to meet up with friends in the industry, vendors, people you just want to meet, hang out with, things like that. So doing those shows have been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And if you're overwhelmed by 100,000 people in the city of Vegas, the one in Louisville is a great show too.
That's true. The Utility Expo?
Yep. The Utility Expo in Louisville is a great show too. And it's a little bit smaller scale, more manageable. City's not so crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
We still found ways to get in trouble at 4 a.m, but it's not as crazy as Vegas.
It'll happen in every city though, especially.
Yeah. I got a crazy story about our trip to Louisville, but it's not podcast appropriate.
Dang it. Maybe after.
Yeah. Maybe after. There was something I wanted to add to what you were talking about. Where were we at there? Oh, the shows and all that. I was going to tell you, you like to break it down so they get at least one thing that they can remember and go utilize and implement. I just did a workshop for 30 business owners here in the city of Peoria. I give back to the Small Business Development Center that I use as a resource and a mentor locally. So they're like, hey, you want to talk to them about like social media marketing and like we always see your stuff. It's good. So like we did one on mastering your message and like being able to write really good quality posts for your business. And as I built the presentation out, I'm like, man, this is going to be overwhelming.
Sure. Yeah.
So like when I finished the whole presentation, I took the last slide, which was 3 bullet points and 9 words, and I duplicated it and moved it to the beginning. And I just changed, there will be 3 bullet points, 9 words. And I made it so it was 9 words. And I was like, listen, we're going to cover a lot of stuff, but this is the last slide you're going to see. It's going to be 3 bullet points and 9 words. So no matter how overwhelmed you feel, just remember there's light at the end of the tunnel. And as long as you remember these 9 words, you're going to take away a ton of value from the day.
I think that's perfect because I think addressing it at the beginning and then at the end is what you want to do. And also as you're sitting in on these sessions, pay attention to that too. It's just, I just want to take away one thing because most of the time, if you think back to all the sessions you've sat in, you probably don't remember really much of anything from any of them. And so there's a couple that stood out to you maybe that where you're like, you still use one of the pieces today. And I think that's because they honed in on no matter what you learn through this entire hour and a half, take this one thing away. And so I think it's, like you said, just finding that piece and really honing in on it at the beginning, but then at the end as well.
Yeah. Cause it's almost like ensuring, just kind of assuring them at the beginning, like you're going to be okay by the time we get to the end of this. Yeah. But we get to the end of this, you're going to be okay. So, and I think contractors could implement that in their estimating and proposal process too. Cause like it's overwhelming for a lot of these landowners and homeowners.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like that, it's almost like the summary at the top. It's like, here's what we're going over, all the evidence, all the numbers, everything is in here, but just know like, this is why, we got to this point.
Yeah. But even going one step, like when we work with customers, I'm like, listen, when you go meet them at their house, shake their hand, say hi. I'm like, the first thing you should be doing is like, listen, I like to spend about 15 minutes with you, ask you quite a few questions so I can really understand what you're trying to do. Once we get through that, I'd like to go walk the property with you so we can actually do this and that. And then from that point, I will take this much time to create the estimate. I'll submit it to you. Then we'll call, follow up. And then if there's any questions, anything, we can go over that. But like outline your whole process before you even ask about the project.
Yeah, I think it takes away those, sometimes those blow ups too of like not understanding the expectations, but going through it at the beginning helps a ton, and just like setting the bar of like, this is how we do it. This is what you can expect. And then usually no matter what, it's like, once they know that, it's like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. This is why you do it.
Yeah. We worked with customers, like with clients, and they always talk about like, they always skip the pre-qual questions.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, I can do that. Then we dig into that, and then they always have some pushback as to why they don't do it,
Yeah.
And these are all people that have paid us to do consulting work. I'm like, hey, do you remember that phone call that you and I had? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, do you remember me telling you one thing about what we do as a business in the first 30 minutes? He's like, no. I'm like, because I didn't know if I could help you.
Exactly.
Right. Like I spent 30 minutes learning about you and your business before I even, like, you asked me a question about it. I would pivot back to asking you a question about your business because I wasn't going to let you guide that conversation because I needed to know all this information before we even got to what we do.
Yeah. I think that says a lot though of just, taking the reins. I always think about that. It's like, you're the expert in the situation. You need to like have the program or the systems of like taking the reins and showing them how you do it and why. And yeah, especially in the conversation too, like you said, not letting it divert off track here. Like for the first 30 minutes here, there's certain things I need to figure out to make sure that this is a good fit. And so kind of making sure that you're the one driving the bus in a respectful way, because they came to you for a certain reason.
Yeah. The guy I interviewed this morning, Shane, he was telling me that when customers have budget constraints, they never negotiate price. They negotiate scope of work. And I love that. Like value. we're not discounting our value. We'll just change the scope of work to fit the budget you have for the project.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that too. And it's just, we're not here to talk about money necessarily. It's just a lot of times it comes down to expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's so easy to get caught up. Like, well, if I give them $1,000 off, maybe I'll land this job.
Yeah. It's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down.
No, because you can only go to zero.
Yeah.
Like if you focus on giving value, you can go infinite. If you focus on giving the lowest price, you can literally only go to zero.
Yeah. I think people see that too. I think they respect it. Like when the reason you do an estimate is because of like how your business runs, what you need to make sure your business operates and is profitable and your people are paid, and what it costs to do the job as well. And just like seeing that in your estimate, I think people can respect that, where there's no budge on price necessarily. Like it is what it is because we put the work into getting to this point and making sure that this is accurate and correct. Like it's not like there's no discounts to be applied. And I'm definitely not like a discount guy. I think you should you do need to figure out your value though, and making sure that the value you're offering matches up with what the cost is.
And I think you need to overvalue. And where I feel a lot of contractors fall short is they just don't tell them something that they would already do, right? Like if you're going to do raking of the edges and make sure there's no gravel in any grass at all, spell that out.
Yeah.
Right. If you guarantee, if they would call you in 90 days and say, hey, a pothole just popped up my driveway, and you would go out there and fix it, Tell them you have a guarantee for X amount of and it doesn't have to be a year. Right? It's whatever you're comfortable doing. But just like there's so many things these guys would do if somebody called, but they didn't spell it out in the estimate to provide more value than the competitors that they're bidding against them.
Yeah, I think it all goes back to just being over prepared and just making sure that it's all spelled out there. And it's more so for the client too, just to know like, okay, yeah, if they do have to come out, there is an extra charge, but here it is. And that makes sense because they have to remobilize, they come back out, makes sense. And it can't be perfect. But if none of that's in there and the pothole comes up, they're going to call expecting it to be fixed. And so it's just, setting the expectation, making sure that you guys are both on the same page before you even start. And that's during the project, after the project, for the life of it. I mean, just making sure that everything's spelled out there.
Yeah. 100%. I always say, don't fall into the McDonald's effect. Like, don't tell them you get a number 4. Tell them you get a double quarter pounder with cheese, large fry, and a Diet Coke. Like, let's spell it out.
I like that. I don't think I've ever heard that, but I like it.
Yeah. Because it's so easy. Like when you talk marketing, you have to remember these guys don't do it. And you've got to go back to a lower education level to make sure that you're spelling out all the bullet points. Where when you talk to other agency owners or your team, you can say the shortcut words or the buzzwords and everyone knows what you mean. And we in the construction industry, like they get caught up in like just speaking the way they speak. And the customers are just like deer in headlights. Like, I don't know what you mean by slope and whatever you're talking about, like, because they don't go back and make it easy to understand.
Yeah, I know a couple guys, Dervin Whitmer with Dig It Excavating. He's big in the septic world up in Michigan, and he does such a great job of educating the clients. Like anytime, same with Brian Andronico out with Anderson Septic, just leading like almost like a teacher, just like here's how your septic system works. Here's how the flow works. Here's what is happening right now. If we fix this, this will happen, and just. You do kind of have to go back to your customer's level and understand that they haven't been putting in septic systems for 30 years and they probably don't even know where their tank is. And so, I just love that too. It's just like treating them with respect, but also just leading with education and making sure that, we're kind of on the same page here.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's a simple, easy process that you can fix right away and it'll make a massive impact in your business.
Yeah. And like you said too, it's just, walking the project with the client, especially if it's residential, just walking, seeing the vision, making sure that everything's spelled out there. And then, not being scared to be like, that's not covered in this, but if you want it covered, I can put that in there, just be an additional cost. And, cause the additional cost shouldn't just come from the clouds. Like there's a reason that it costs more, and your client will see that, especially if you talk about it up front, and you'll know that, and just making sure that, everyone's paid up, everyone's good to go. Cause these bumps in the road will definitely happen. And, if you don't take care of them beforehand. Yeah.
And you hear so many stories, and I think almost every contractor can tell you about it. Like there's that time that they just did a handshake and said $1,200. And then it's like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And then they don't get paid. And I'm like, this is what happens when you don't follow your process.
A lot of times the $1,200 even turns into a nightmare where they don't get paid and they get sued, or, it turns, it's like, oh, it's $1,200. What's the big deal? But if you don't have that, in writing, it's just a handshake. Even if it's the worst I hear is the in-laws, it seems. I know,
man.
And they're back on site. They're back fixing everything. They have to demo like the deck they just put in. And it's a mess. So no matter who it is, no matter what, it's never disrespectful just to have it in writing.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason that people say business is business.
Yeah. Business can change some people too. That's for sure.
It sure can, man. It sure can. So your clients that you work with at Phaser, like you've got, you're very open about this too. Like you like people that are $500,000 or higher in annual revenue. Do you have like a cap on that? Like, do you go all the way up to a $25 million a year company, or do you like say, hey, we like to $500,000 to $2 million, or do you have a range?
Yeah, so we do have a range. And so phase one, definitely $500,000, because it's more of just like how I understand their cash flow. And like if you're doing $300K a year, it wouldn't be wise to be paying us $1,500 of that each month long term. So definitely wanting to get you up to that 500,000. And then our phase 2 is that 1 to 10 million. And then we have a phase 3, which goes up to about 100. So our biggest client right now does about 70 million, but it's very similar to our phase 2, where it's just the marketing basics. And so we can do a lot more, but we purposely don't, because distractions. And so we don't want to be doing all these crazy a la carte things for some clients where 80% of our other clients are being neglected on their side. So we keep everything very simple, very straight, but anything honestly like 100 million and over per year, we'll usually send to like BuildWit or somebody else, because they're pretty corporate at that level, and our team, it just isn't structured for that. We're structured to come in where maybe it's just the owner and an office manager. Maybe it's the owner's wife or husband and a marketing coordinator, or maybe it's just the owner doing it all himself or herself. And so that's where we love to come in best, because we bring the full department, and it just doesn't mesh well if they're a big corporate company and we're also working with their graphic designers and SEO specialists. Like, it just, I don't know. It's a little too political for me too, I think. So I think
it's very political. One of my really close friends, in fact, the guy I did that Riptide marketing with,
yep.
He's a director at a company called here in Peoria, and they're 50% of their portfolio is Caterpillar. And it's still, I mean, it's like you've got budget constraints, and you've got colors and branding, and like everything has to get checked double. Like they've got three people on every account.
Yeah.
Just to make sure the quality control and the process handles right, because it's just so corporate.
Yeah. And I'll say it too. I'll be the first to say it. And so I, obviously own a marketing company. I am a good enough guy. Like, that's what I like to say. It's not going to be perfect. Let's not waste our time trying to make it perfect. It's going to be good enough. And so like, let's get 90% of the way there and send it, and let's go. And let's go to the next thing and the next. And so that's my personality. So I think I struggle a little bit when people, for example, will look at a logo and just say like, but what does the curve tell me? Like, what story is that point telling me? And I'm like, I don't know. It's a curve. Like, it looks great. So I'm a little bit more harsh on that, but I think it helps with the construction industry too, because they're like, most of the time they're on the same page as us of like, yeah, like, let's not waste 15 hours on this one little passage here. Like, let's get this going. So, I think that's also a reason we've worked with some big corporate clients, and we've had to let a few of them go because we end up spending more time on labor than we're even making in revenue. So it's not our type of marketing. So I really enjoy the ones where they're doing, for example, $3 million a year. They have their Wix website still that they built in 2020. And they're like, Luke, we have some GCs that look at our website, and I just don't think we're building enough trust with them. Is this something you could help with, or any of your friends that own an agency could help with? And that's really where we can fit in best, is just adding the most value there, and then being partnered with them for, the next 10, 20, 30 years, ideally.
Yeah. Do you audit and make sure and set up any of their social media accounts like LinkedIn or whatever if you need to also, or is that separate?
That's a good question. So we don't do any of that, actually. Okay. If somebody asks me, I will absolutely take a look. I'll give them advice just because we see a lot of that. But it's actually my just personal feeling that business's social media should be managed by somebody within the business. We used to manage construction companies' social media, and it was a little tough. It's hard to match every single person's voice in the company and do it successfully when you don't even work in the company. So that's something where I always tell people, ask us questions about strategies, things like that, what's working, what's not, different trends, but that will be something that you'll need to manage yourself. But, and for auditing too, that's a good question. Like we'll go through an audit if they want, but that would be just an optional thing.
You got it. Do you do anything with social media marketing, or do you strictly work Google?
Yep. So we do social media marketing on the paid side. So that would be like in our phase 2, so Google pay-per-click ads, and also social media, usually lead form ads, connecting that to like an automation to send them send them the notification there. If they have a CRM, even better. A lot of times we'll build that out for them. But yeah, like kind of just back to our philosophy of just keeping it super simple. If somebody has never ran ads before, we want to figure out why they would want to run ads first. And I think that's the big piece. It's like, you don't need to run any ads sometimes. That's always my long-term goal, is to never run ads for a company, because their organic is just like bringing in all the business and the applicants and the workers. So I think more of what we do now is help people with hiring campaigns of like, Luke, we could have $4 million more revenue each year. We just can't find anyone to work. And what I always say is like, we're not going to guarantee that you're going to get a bunch of applicants, but we can build out like a hiring funnel that if somebody's looking, you're going to find them likely and they're going to apply. So it's one of those things where we can absolutely help with it, but there's no guarantees either.
It's the eighth wonder of the world, man. Like, and not just excavation. I'm talking like business in general. Yep. Like hiring is so reactive. Hey, we're short 3 people. We got to put a thing on Indeed. There's like, they don't have a proactive campaign,
right?
Like a funnel of nurturing and educating and getting and like weeding out the bad applicants. And it's such, I mean, the guys that do that, it's game changer.
Yeah. And that's a great point. So we don't even pretend to be like a staffing company for or recruiting, I should say. Cause I have so much respect for them, and sure, we can help on the marketing side, but there's a few great staffing companies out there for construction companies. And that's usually where I would send our client to, is be like, these are the experts. It's similar with video too. Like, I'm not going to pretend I'm a video guy. I'm like, BuildWit, Eagle Eye Productions, True Grit, like these guys, I'm going to send you to them. They'll get all the video and pictures. They know my email. They'll send them right to me and we'll work with that. So the collaboration, I think, is much better than just like trying to do it all yourself. But especially with staffing, recruiting, video, those kind of things, because those are totally different industries.
Yeah. But again, like just looking at it from a proactive point of view as a business owner, instead of waiting until it's reactive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like you mentioned with the leads too, not waiting till the funnel is dry, but always doing stuff in the community, always having, your applicant portal open. And so even just having a careers page on your website or somewhere where people can apply regardless if you're hiring, I think that helps, get your name out there too, of making sure people know that they can apply for your company. Maybe they'll find a spot for you. And also just showing that, showing what else you do besides work, showing the Christmas party, showing the community engagement things, doing other stuff.
The coffee on the truck with the sunrise in the morning.
Yeah.
Those are those are the ones that get the most engagement too.
Yeah. And it's a good reason why, because you're not selling anything. You're just showing what you do. Social media is meant to be social, and, be social with it. And so definitely, showcase your team, showcase people more often than not. And, that can really help with your hiring as well.
Yeah. Great stuff. If you're smaller and you're looking at this going, oh, that's outside of my scope where I'm sitting right now. Like, there's one thing that every business, I don't care if you're the only owner operator in it, know your values, know what kind of culture you want to have, start living, eating, and breathing that type of culture. So that way you'll start attracting people that want to live and have that similar culture in their life. We took a guy from 6 employees to 20, from 1.5 million to over 3.5 million. And he never once posted a job posting. Like guys from other crews, like, hey man, I want to work for you. I ran into your lead foreman yesterday and he was telling me how you run a job site. That's the kind of job site I want to work at. I hate the unorganization where I work.
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret too. And that starts from today. It starts from the beginning. It starts from the roots of your company and how you treat your people, what you actually believe in, your core values. Even like another aspect of that too is like, go to the source more, like support your local trades at your high school, support the trades at your community colleges. Don't just do it to get employees, like support them because you believe in it, and, set up a scholarship fund and all this stuff. There's so much you can do, but also look at the bigger picture of like, I'm not just doing this to pluck applicants from this program. I'm doing this because for the betterment of like the industry as a whole. And then it typically, when you view it like that, it seems like the applicants come your way, or the good people, or people are attracted to that. So yeah, really just kind of looking outside the box like that and just supporting the industry and supporting your people.
Yeah. And then you talk about that. We talk about doing like a roundtable podcast with me, you, and Mike, and maybe a few others that are in the industry, and, just kind of like have fun with it and share different ideas. And I'm hearing more and more from guys I meet that they're networking with other excavation companies. They're sending work that's a better fit for this guy based on his equipment or his schedule. And you're seeing the effects of like, they're all busy because they've got 5 megaphones in the marketplace for their business instead of just one.
Yeah. And I think that helps too with just a lot of it, say you do take on a big project and you're like, I don't know if we can fulfill this entire thing. Like, you can also sub out another company to help with that. And so I'm seeing much more of that in today's world of just the collaboration instead of like hiding everything for yourself, but more of like, hey, yeah, I think you're just a better fit for this job. Let me know if you can help them, and just working at it that way. And so I think we're going to see more of that. I think there's a bigger push, more transparency, because as an industry, if you have a few guys, undercutting the price, it hurts the whole industry. So just making sure that, the rising tide lifts all the ships kind of thing, especially as a construction industry, we want to grow as a whole, just making sure that we're taking care of each other.
No, and I'm excited to see it. Like, it's so nice to see everyone trying to help out and build their little community in their area, because it can be lonely working for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a long way to go too, but you're right. It's just, finding others that are in a similar situation. I think, even listening to your podcast, there's a lot of those stories too, of just people can really connect and relate to other people's businesses and their stories and what they're going through. And so, and that's been fairly new, is just listening to the podcasts that are out there. So, I think we're going to continue seeing that bigger wave of that collaboration and those connections and that networking in an industry that has typically been pretty tight-lipped about it.
Yeah. I just felt like it was time. Like, there was none that I really noticed in the excavation industry where they were interviewing like the average guy, right? They're all going after like the $100 million company owner, not the guy that does the books and digs the holes. And I remember listening, I don't know if you ever listened to it or not, but Andrew Warner had a podcast called Startup Stories. And I think he still has it, but like 8-9 years ago, and like he would bring on founders of companies, and they could be $1 million company or $100 million company, and they would just go over the startup story. And I just always remember I would listen to that one intently, because it's the grind at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's the best lessons.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that same, like, if I can bring one person on a show and like something he says inspires somebody else and helps them through a problem, like we're connecting the dots.
Yeah. One of my favorite things, that I learned is that, is no matter who you're talking to in any conversation, I love the analogy of being a sponge, but it's for 2 reasons. Like, take in as much as you can, but also know that you have something to give too, and so there's always something that you can add value to in the conversation, whether it's Mark Cuban or a successful business owner or whoever, or if it's somebody that's 18 years old. Like, no matter what, you can learn something from them, and they can also learn something from you. So just always having that mindset in a conversation, because sometimes, you get too starry-eyed and you just think like, I'm just going to soak everything in and just listen the entire time. But then you start to realize that everyone's human, and they can potentially learn something from you as well.
And it's crazy, because I don't know if you feel this way at times. I know I do, but like, if I meet somebody new and they start talking and they're kind of perceived as an expert in their industry, like, I'm open-eared, eyes open, listening. Yep. But then I'm like, well, what value do I have to him? And like, I shortchange myself in my head.
Classic imposter syndrome too. But just reminding yourself like, hey, there's some cool stuff we've done in my life, or there's some cool things that I might know this person's, never done. And you're not trying to like throw that on them, but just having that mindset of that give and take. And that's just what makes a great conversation is, the act of like listening, taking it in, but then being able to ask the right questions, and then being able to add that value as well. Yep.
Absolutely, man. Anything that you're seeing in the market that you want to talk about that guys out there might be interested in, or some trends?
Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm seeing is, just these like fun groups popping up. So there's a lot more going on. It probably started with Instagram, and Instagram can be good or bad, but a lot of networking going on. And so I'm seeing a lot more of these groups traveling now instead of just staying in their local area. And so, we're heading out to some shows this next year, especially. And so, just kind of like starting to throw things out there like, hey, is anyone going out here? And then really starting to pull people out of their shells, because I think that is where you can learn the most, is from other people outside of your local area. And so I'm seeing a lot more of that, of where people are more willing to be like, let's pull myself out of the business for a little bit, for a week, and see if we can learn something. Let's see if we can learn something, bring it back to our business and implement it. So there's that. Podcasts have been huge. I'm wearing the sweatshirt, the Snow Jobs podcast. Those are my guys. They found their niche, of course. Anyone that pushes snow, go listen to the Snow Jobs podcast. And then, your podcast, and just, there's so much to learn out there, but also enjoy. And I like to say it on ours of just like, people learn differently. Like there's a lot of people that learned well in school. And I feel like for a lot of us, including myself, I didn't really enjoy school, and I learn in different ways. And my way of learning is through podcasts and maybe an audio book or talking to people. And so seeing more of that, of just like, how can we learn the way we would prefer to learn? And so we do a webinar. It's called Dirtbags University. And we literally market it as it's a Monday night, grab your drink of choice, grab your notepad. We're going to learn something, and like, just prepare to have a good time, network with guys and gals in the industry. But also we're going to sit down for an hour and learn something that we can apply to our construction company from a professional. And so
awesome.
How
often do you do those?
About every 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay. You bring somebody in, or do you host it yourself? So
Luke and I, we bring somebody in. We actually pay, and it doesn't matter if, how long they've been speaking or whatever. We always offer to pay for their time. And we wanted to set that parameter for ourselves, because we always want to keep this growing. And it's really helped, because this person comes in with almost like a full presentation now. And so they speak about cash flow in construction, for example. They speak about it for 30 to 45 minutes, giving clear examples like a presentation. But then the fun part is we open it up after that for live Q&A. And so when, I develop the list, and whenever somebody has their question, we'll pull them into the Zoom chat, and then they get to talk about their actual scenario. So, hey guys, my name's Luke. I've got, my business does 800,000 a year. We've got this much in payments. I'm really tight on cash flow. Like, what would you suggest? And then we get to walk through that scenario, and the speaker does as well, with that person. And then everyone listening gets to hear that example as well. So it's been amazing, though. People have taken it. They've responded so well, because everyone comes with their bourbon, their whiskey, their Coors Light, like whatever. And it's a good time. It's not super serious, but at the same time, it's like, we're here to learn something to apply to business. And it's been great, man. So usually about every 6 to 8 weeks, we've got it on our Dirtbags Podcast website. That
was my next question, is where can people find information on that?
Yep. So if you go to dirtbagspodcast.com, there's a Dirtbags University tab. It's something
we'll link it in the show notes too.
That'd be perfect. Thank you. And it's something too, where once we're just about to finalize our next speaker. And once we do, usually give it about 4 to 6 weeks of just promoting it, making sure people get signed up. And then the other nice thing I like about it too is we don't record it. So it's like a private session. It's locked. The speaker it's great because the speaker can open up their own spreadsheets. They can show actual numbers. None of it is published after the fact. And so it's a really good place for people to become vulnerable and also learn a lot more. So that's been awesome. It's been so much fun, but just something that Luke and I have really enjoyed over the last year.
That sounds fantastic, man. God, you're giving me all these ideas, and I just know I don't have the bandwidth to implement all of them myself, because we've got the store and the podcast and the consulting.
Yeah, dude,
you gotta focus,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, with that's helped with our focus is not setting a ridiculous expectation. Not saying like, yeah, every month we're going to do this big thing, but we're like, roughly 6 to 8 weeks. And I think right now we're probably at 10 weeks. So it's just, when it comes around, get excited about it, but we're also not going to stress ourselves out too much if we're a couple weeks off.
Yeah. Very nice, man. Very nice. Well, man, we'll make sure to link your Dirtbags podcast with the Academy in there. We'll make sure to link Phaser Marketing in case anyone out here listening wants to learn more about working with you so they can help them grow their business. And I've just loved this, man. I like your values and your approach to business and life. I feel like we're kind of kindred souls in that regard. It's like a lot of the things we talked about, both of us were shaking our heads like, yep, I agree with you. And it's just cool to see. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show tonight.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it so much. And I'm just excited, to, like we talked about with Mike, just that roundtable type discussion or podcast. I think that would be a ton of fun. So definitely excited to see what we can come up with there and, get some great minds together and some great people.
Yeah. I think we get through the holidays and we can just kind of like, hey, let's drill this down. Cause I mean, we could even fish that out to all of our podcasts, to all of our audiences too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be even better. So, we'll probably have to do it up in Canada in person there with Mike. So do a little business.
Those kids kind of run his life. I doubt he'll be able to travel.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't have kids, so I guess I'm probably out of the equation. So I gotta probably travel up north.
Yeah, I don't either. So I'm with you. We gotta accommodate those. So
there we go. I love it.
Awesome, man. Well, Luke, we'll have to do this again. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your knowledge with us and our audience. And if there's anything Skid Steer Nation can ever do for you or your clients, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks a ton for having me on. And yeah, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, guys, that was an excellent episode. You might have to listen to it 2 or 3 times. There's a lot of gold nuggets in there. The one that stands out to me is your Google business profile page. Go check that out. If you want to learn more and dig deeper into growing your business and you get kind of lost about, hey, he's talking about their values and the cornerstone of their business and their culture and scaling and estimating improvements, head over to groundbreakinggrowth.com. It's a division of Skid Steer Nation. It's our coaching and consulting arm. You'll schedule a time if you want to learn more about it. And that call will actually be with me, nobody else. And we can kind of go over your business and see if you'd be a good fit for the program and if we can help you build an actual business that feels like a business and not a job. So groundbreakinggrowth.com. Until next week, guys, stay dirty.